Good morning, I'm Krista Campbell. Thank you for joining us today for Understanding Non-Revenue Water Loss with Powerful Analytics. Today's webinar is the first in a three-part series. The two webinars that will follow this one are Analyzing Big Water Data Sets for Informed Decision Making on September 25th, and The Power of ArcGIS and Predictive Analysis in Water Utilities on October 16th. You can find out more and register for these webinars at go.esri.com. Put your data to work, as you can see here on the screen. Today, we will focus on non-revenue water loss. My colleague, Matt Kennedy, is going to discuss and demonstrate how Esri analytical tools can identify patterns and trends in your data, enabling you to develop a strategy for managing non-revenue water loss. I hope you enjoy the webinar. Matt?
Thanks, Krista. So a pattern that we've noticed over the past couple of years is that utilities have been collecting lots and lots of data. You've been building up your system of record. So you've got your vector-based data and your tables of attributed information, but you've also been bringing in other sources such as data from critical systems, such as asset management or billing systems, and brought that to augment your GIS-based asset data. A lot of utilities are also embracing real-time data from the Internet of Things. You're connecting to sensor-based data and interacting with things in more real time. And also, it's starting to lead to the collection of more big data sets, lots of records over lots of periods of time. And what is becoming an issue is that with so much of this data, we see a phenomenon where sometimes you become data rich, but information poor. There's so much information that it's time to start talking about ways to navigate all that data and get understanding from it in a timely fashion. So today we're going to see how we can leverage some solutions that will help you turn that data into information. We're going to start out with a poll to kind of get an assessment of where you think you are with your data and your ability to analyze it. So in a moment, Krista's going to launch a poll, and the question is going to be, how long would it take you to figure out how many leaks happened in your system in 2017? So we'll have Krista launch that poll, and we'll take a few seconds for you to answer it.
Here's the poll. As Matt said, the question is, how long will it take you to figure out how many leaks happened in your system in 2017? 5 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, longer. So longer than a week? Looks like so far, maybe half of the crowd has answered. We'll give you another second to select your answer. How long would it take you to figure out how many leaks you had in 2017? 5 minutes, 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, or longer than a week? It looks like so far, Matt, we've got about 25% saying 5 minutes, 20% 1 hour, and about 18% saying longer than a week. So it's a fairly even spread. Thank you everyone for taking the poll. We're going to close it. There we go. Back to you, Matt.
All right. Thank you for filling in the poll question there. Going to throw a couple of curveballs into this question as well now. For your leaks that happened in 2017, how many of them happened in the winter when the temperature was below 32 degrees? How many of them happened under high pressure? How many happened to a certain material? There's lots of data, and we've seen a lot of utilities that have this data. And for the people that thought it would take, a day or longer or a week or longer to answer that question, worry not, because today is going to be about how you can reduce the amount of time that it's going to take you to get to those answers. All right, so where we're going to start is Insights for ArcGIS. This is a spatial business intelligence tool that's been part of the ArcGIS platform for almost 2 years now. So it's relatively new. And it is going to help you address the problem that we have been seeing, where you have lots of data, but it's separated out into silos all over your enterprise. What Insights is going to let you do is bring all that data to one location virtually. You're not going to change where your data is stored, but you're going to be able to bring things into workbooks and conduct spatial exploration on that data, which will help you bring patterns and trends out of those tables and maps and different layers of information. It's going to help you notice things and hopefully help you discover what questions you should ask next of your data. So let's get a look at that. We'll go over to my browser, and I've opened up an Insights workbook. You can see on the left, it's got some data layers in it. And that data could have come from my ArcGIS Enterprise portal. Data can come from my ArcGIS Online organization if I have one of those. I can leverage data from Excel and CSV files on my desktop. And I can also reach out to those different silos of information. So if I have a database that I can connect to with information from my work order management system, if I want to bring those tables to my analysis, I can reach out to anything and bring it together into this workbook so that I can explore for those patterns and trends in my data. What we're going to be doing today is looking at about 14 years of leak data. So let's make that map a little bit bigger. And I'm going to start just by looking at the data I had for the leaks themselves. So just by expanding, I can take a look at some of the attributes that I have access to. And one of the first things that catches my eye is maybe the year the leak took place. So let's drag that over to a chart. And we'll pick a line graph to represent that. And let's size that so we can see it a little bit better. So this is the beginnings of what spatial data exploration looks like. Is I'm looking at a map of my data, I'm looking at a chart of the same data. The map and the chart are related to each other. So when I click on the year 2005 on the chart, on the left on the map, I can see the distribution of where those leaks occurred. Let's look at a low year like 2010. Let's go up to a high. We had another high in 2012. And something I'm noticing as I move through the time here is I'm never seeing any particular area maybe where just all the leaks happen in one spot that year. I kind of have a phenomenon of everything kind of happens everywhere. All right. Insights will let me deal with anomalies as well. So if we look at 2018, there's less leaks, but that's only because I have data up until May of this year. So I can filter down data to adjust what I'm looking at any time. So on this card, I can just filter down this chart and say, let's just look at the years we had complete years of data. So I'm going to take out 2004 and 2018 and look at maybe a better trend line for how leaks took place. All right, so overall, we've had less leaks more recently than back in the early days of 2004, but not that much different. And again, the distribution does not change drastically from year to year. So all that means for now is I'm not done looking. There's going to be a lot more data exploration I have to do. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to try combining this leak data set with some other data that I've got for my system to see if there's any other kind of spatial relationship with leaks and why they happen. So I have a map that I'll create of my district meter areas, just different zones I have in my service area. And to do an aggregation of that, all I have to do is grab my leak points, drag them to my meter area map and drop them on spatial aggregation. And what that's going to do is give me a count of all the leaks that happened in those zones. All right. Insights for ArcGIS is meant for people that are not necessarily the GIS expert. All right. This is something that a data scientist, a department head, a specialist, someone that's an expert at this data can have simple, effective geographic tools to analyze their information and work with it easily. So if I want to change the way this data is represented, let's look at polygons instead of dots there. Let's pick a color that I like better. So I think that will play out a little better for me, and maybe I don't need that transparency. Couple of simple clicks, and what I'm looking at now is, I made this map to try and figure out, is there one particular zone that's dark blue with lots of leaks, and then all the rest are a very faded light blue? Is there one culprit zone, or is it spread out more? And it's looking like, when I did that aggregation, let's look at the name of each zone and that count of leaks that happened there. And let's supplement this map with another chart to try and see what we're looking at on the map. All right, so I'm gonna have a hard time understanding this chart. So we're gonna sort that to make it easier to work with. And what I learned here is that, if we look at the red average line, what I might expect a little bit is, half of my zones are above average, half are below average. Looking at that a little bit differently on the map is going to give me some different meaning though. All right, so let me go and adjust this map a little bit. Instead of these 5 classes, I'm going to look at just 2 classes. And if you see the red line on that histogram there, I can change the break line to match up with that average line. And believe it or not, this tells me a little something about my data, right? Everything on the map here that's in darker blue corresponds to areas in my service area where I've got more populated areas, right? Especially in this middle corridor here and this corridor to the southeast of the service area. So the area where I have above average amounts of leaks, it looks like it's corresponding to where I've got lots of population. And I want to run that down a little bit further, and I can do that without having to exit insights. I can go get population information and see if I'm onto something just by doing data enrichment. So every map has this action button that I can bring up other spatial functions. And I'm going to go to the living atlas of the world, which you all have access to as part of the ArcGIS platform. There's a wealth of data variables that I can go and bring information to my service areas here just by running a simple enrichment. So in a few seconds, I've got this new aggregation that should be called Enriched 1 there. Let's take that and let's do another quick aggregation of that. So I'm going to bring my leaks to my population now. I'll get a quick count. And in this case, I'm not doing this to get a map. What I really want to get out of this is right down here. I want to see my population count and my leak count. And if I bring those 2 numbers to a scatter plot, I can see what kind of relationship I might have between amount of people and the amount of leaks that occur. And we can throw a trend line onto that. And at almost 0.6, it's not the strongest correlation that we've ever seen, but as we follow the points, there is at least a little bit of a correlation between higher population and the amount of leaks that get reported. What does that tell me from a data exploration standpoint? That might be one of the factors why we have more leaks in certain areas, but it's definitely not the only reason that leaks occur. It's not going to be just stress on the system. What I'm going to do now is try and get down closer to the ground. Right? Everything I've done so far has been trying to find if there are any of these zones that are particular culprits. I did not find that, but again, insights will teach you the next thing you should ask. All right, so now I'm going to try, to get a little bit closer to the ground, I'm going to try parcel-based data, and I'm going to aggregate my leaks to that. All right, and when I do that, it's going to give me a new perspective on the leaks that happen in my system. So we'll give that a second to work itself out. And when that is finished, what I get is a way to look at each property ID number and the number of leaks that happen there. All right, so let's bring that out to a table and see what I can learn. All right, let's sort these by descending. And right away, I learned that, in the past 14 years, we've been to that property 53 times. Seems like a lot to me. All right, it seems like a lot that we've been to that property 44 times. And even if I just scroll down a little bit, I'm going to start to see lots of these 7s down here. So if I'm going somewhere 7 times in 14 years, obviously I'm going somewhere every other year. And to me, that seems like a lot. And I want to focus in a little deeper on that problem. All right, I want to look at just the areas where we've been somewhere 7 or more times. So I'm going to apply a filter to that piece of data. And I should have pointed out before, we started out with about 23,000 leaks. And if I flip over this card, we've now filtered that down to 196. So insights with a few drags and drops is giving me a way to find the most important things that I want to take a look at. All right, and the last thing I want to look at in this particular example is let's look at the leaks based on the year those properties were built, because that seems to be the only data I've got to work with right now. And I'm going to drag that to a chart. And let's go back and explore some more and see what we learn about bringing that into this exploration. Well, the place that we visited 53 times was a property that was built in 1941. So maybe we would expect a lot of leaks in an older property. Maybe not that many, but at least it's part of an explanation. Down here bothers me a lot. All right, this place that we went to 44 times is a property that we built in 2007. So, why is a place that's so new reporting so many leaks? And in fact, if I look at the chart, why is it reporting more leaks than any other year? So Insights is helping me pull these kinds of metrics out of the data to find, what problems should I be looking for, right? Now, when I look at a property that's built in 2007, it gets me thinking about age of infrastructure. But I don't have that data tied to my leaks that I started with. So I'm going to need some more data, and I'm going to rely on my team members in my utility who can do more with GIS and possibly make more data for me to work with. All right, and at that point, we're going to switch back to our presentation for a second. And we're going to talk about what the Geo Analytics Server is. All right, Geo Analytics Server is a server role for ArcGIS Enterprise that we can use to analyze large data sets very quickly. So these are a few of the things we're going to do with Geo Analytics today. We're going to be able to analyze our leak data in space and time. We're going to look at hotspots of data, and we're going to aggregate our leak data to our pipe infrastructure data, right? So when a data scientist kind of runs out of things that they want to explore, they can call on their GIS team to use some very effective tools to put together more data to work with. And because all of this happens over ArcGIS Enterprise, that data can easily be shared back to the people that want to work with that in Insights. So let's go over to work with that a little bit. You can see here that we've got that same leak data added to ArcGIS Pro. And the first thing I'll do with that is I will create a 3D space-time cube. All right, so we're going to aggregate some points together. We'll take our leak data and we'll call it the leak cube. Now, what I'm going to be doing is breaking this data down into space. So I'm going to make these 3,000-foot bins. And time, I'm going to create 6-month time bins. All right, so we're going to go back to the start of this data and make a series of 3,000-foot, 6-month bins of time. So when this is done running on our Geo Analytics server, we'll be able to look at this leak data. Instead of just looking at a cloud of points from the top down, we'll be able to switch over to our space-time cube and look at things, where did problems happen and when did they happen? All right, so that was completed. That only took a few seconds to work itself out. And I'm going to switch over to my 3D scene where I've already got, a sample that I ran earlier today, just so I would have all the symbology already worked out the way I want. So this is what a space-time cube looks like. We can see all those hexagons. And the darker the red is, the more leaks we had in those different areas. So we can see a lot of these lighter columns where there really aren't many problems at all. We see columns where sometimes problems crop up, but then they go away. And we see areas where there's always been problems in that dark red column there. But it's good to see that by and large there's not red everywhere. But I want to take away the bad, the good for a while and just analyze the bad. I want to see where the problems are. And I have a few ways that I can do that. One way is I can analyze this based on time. So if we enable time for this cube, we can take that start date and we're going to bring our time slider onto this scene, and we'll give that a second to work itself out. And we'll be able to slide around through time. All right, so let me adjust my time slider down so that we're just looking at a few of those different bins. All right, and we'll give that a minute or a few seconds to redraw. And once it works itself out, we can start stepping through space and time. All right, so this is our leak situation from March to September of 2005, and we can step ahead and just visualize, where things seem to stay the same and where they seem to change. All right, now another way we can look at this is just let's look at just the big problems with leaks. So I'll apply a definition query to this layer. Instead of looking at it based on time, we'll just look at anywhere that we had a leak count that was higher than maybe 4 in any 6-month period. And it should draw in a second or two. All right, so now what we're looking at is just the deeper red parts where there were 4 or more leaks that happened in any 6-month slice of time. All right, so now this lets me explore exactly the places in my service area where we have problems. All right. Now to bring this down to something that's more manageable to analyze, we can do some more analysis. So what I can do with my space-time cube is there's lots of different tools I can run on a space-time cube. One of them I'm going to run here is called a hotspot analysis. So I can feed my space-time cube into this tool, take the count of leaks, and let's give it a nice wide swath to search around in. We'll make it find a certain number of neighbors for leaks, and We'll do 6-month time spans, just like we did for the space-time cube, and we'll run that. And what it's going to do is it's going to break down this space-time cube into emerging hotspots. So let's turn off the cube, and I'm going to bring my hotspot analysis down to my 2D layer there. And we'll give that a second to draw, and we're going to get a look at what is important in my 14 years of leak data. All right, so the dark red are areas of persistent hotspots. All right, we always have leaks here. Where my mouse is right now, we have areas where they are intensifying hotspots. It seems like leak problems are getting worse there. And then all the blue is relatively good. We have areas where we're seeing less leaks happening over time. All right, so what this hotspot analysis is letting me do is, get an idea that, it looks like I need to focus on the center of my district. Moving down to the south and the east is where I have to tackle the most problems with leaks going forward. All right, and to get some understanding into that, let me apply a little bit of transparency to this. And I'm going to add some imagery in. So let me change the base map of this and show you one of the ways that we can get an understanding of, what's going on under these different intensifying and persistent hotspots. So when the image draws, I'll go ahead and zoom in a little bit. And give the image a couple more seconds to draw. All right, there it goes. So I can see under a lot of these areas where we have persistent and intensifying hotspots, we have areas that are very heavily populated. All right, so that kind of confirms my theory from before that a lot of population density might be something to do with the amount of leaks. But my theory does not always hold true. If I move down to this area here, that's an area of persistent hotspots as well, but it's not as heavily populated as some of those other areas that we're looking at. All right, so I need to think about things I know about my system, and I know that pressure is a problem in my system. And something that's going to help me understand that aspect of this is I'm going to exaggerate the ground in my 3D scene a little bit. And when this redraws, I'll show you why I'm worried about pressure in the area that we're going to be looking at. All right, it's working on redrawing. All right, and if I tilt the map down a little bit, I hope you can start to notice that we're in a pretty hilly area. And you can maybe pick out a couple of the properties on top of that hill there and some others in the area, but suffice it to say, we have to push a lot of pressure to get water up the hill there. So, I'm not surprised to see that we've got a persistent hotspot for leaks in this area because, pressure is a factor in parts of our system, all right? And if I pan over to the north there, that area, that was more heavily populated and, increasing, it's not as hilly. So what this is telling me and what this hotspot analysis has helped me learn is that, pressure is definitely another factor that causes leaks in my system. And I have some other factors that I want to look at as well. All right, if I go back to my 2D map, I want to bring soil into the equation as well. All right, so if we look at ArcGIS Pro, it's important to remember that this is a connected desktop. All right, so I can connect into my portal and get all of my content, but I also have access to the living atlas of the world, where I can bring in other information from thousands of different maps and data layers, that are curated by Esri. All right, so layers that are soils that are corrosive to steel or concrete. I've got one of those layers added to my map. So I know that my data scientist wants to look at, how my pipes in my service area relate to these areas that are highly or moderately corrosive to soil. And we ran a little bit of analysis to clip out the pieces of that data and arrive at this. All right, so we basically intersected all of these pipes with these corrosive areas, and that's going to be something that we're going to send back across to people across our platform. All right, and then the last thing to send back is, if I identify any of these pipes, you can see that they've got information on their material, their diameter, and when they were installed. All right, and those are things that I want to bring to the leak data that my data scientists did not have when they started their exploration. And for that last thing, we're going to go back to the Geo Analytics Server to do that analysis. All right, so I've got my Geo Analytics tools that I have access to, and I'm going to join all of my pipe infrastructure data to my leak data. All right, and again, this is going to happen to layers that are already in my enterprise. So when I create this leak infrastructure layer, that's already going to be where my data scientists can access it and bring it into insights. All right, so I'm going to find for every leak, I want to find the nearest pipe within 500 feet, join those attributes together and put it in my enterprise's relational data store. All right, now Geo Analytics Server is fast, but not fast enough for us. This analysis will take maybe 20 to 25 minutes to tear through all these points and lines. But what that brings to your organization is the ability to get answers in hours, not days. All right, connecting thousands of features to thousands of other features, or even millions of features, is much faster now using technology that can break down those data sets and work on them faster. And that's what Geo Analytics Server is all about. So I'm not going to run this tool. I'm going to just go back to Insights now and do a little bit of deeper exploration now that I've got smarter leak data. So back at Insights, I'll switch over to another page of my workbook. And these are leaks that I ran all of those geoanalytic tools that we just showed. And if I drop down the attributes for this, I have information now on the year the pipe was installed. All right, before my data scientist was able to look at the year the property was built, but now they have the ability to look at leaks in the context of when the infrastructure was placed in the ground. All right, so there we are again with a lot of leaks that happened in 2007, and they're happening all over the service area. There's a big wide distribution of leak information there. We can look at some other things here, like the material the pipes were made from. All right, that's one of the things that came back from that join that we did. So by and large, most of our leaks seem to happen on polyethylene pipe, a lot of problems with PVC as well. All right, we can look at what is the pipe used for. Let's bring that to a chart. And by and large, most of our problems seem to be with domestic water laterals. All right, and then distribution mains come in a close second. Well, not a close second, but and then we also have things like diameter. All right, I was looking at that hotspot before that got me thinking about pressure. And now what I'm looking at is a lot of my leaks, far and away my leaks seem to happen on infrastructure that's between 1 and 3 inches in diameter. All right, so this is what it means to have information. I was able to take data that I had from lots of different sources. I took soil data, I took leak data, I took infrastructure data. I've used population data today, and I've brought all those things into one place where I can now start looking at these different factors and saying, oh, so the next time we ask you how many leaks did you have in 2017, you can tell me, well, most of them were, this diameter and this material and this usage, because you'll be able to bring that data somewhere and ask that question and very quickly see the answer. We can combine data as well. So I like seeing the different materials and usages. I want to see how those two attributes play against each other. So if I take the material and I also take the type or the usage of those pipes, I can drag those to what we call stacked charts. Let me just change to that. So this is what a stacked bar chart looks like. It's letting me look at groups of problems. All right, so I have the most leaks on polyethylene, and by stacking the chart, I can see that it's polyethylene as it is used as a domestic lateral. All right, when I have problems with PVC, it looks like the biggest problem with PVC in my system is when I use it as a distribution main. Same with concrete. All right, copper, that switches back to being a problem with domestic laterals. All right, so by stacking information, I can see what the different categories or groups of problems that I have in my system. And it can help me focus how I want to run my analysis. All right, for example, if I switch this chart, let's flip from looking at the materials to looking at what the pipes are used for. So I changed the way the variables are represented, and I can see, for my domestic laterals, I see copper, I see polyethylene. All right, I see that distribution mains. What types of materials do I have distribution mains for, and how many breaks? All right, I can easily pull that information out. And in my case, in my utility, even though domestic is the biggest problem, my utility is not responsible for fixing lateral issues. That's on the customer to fix their lateral. So I might want to just look at these next two largest categories, the distribution and the transmission, because that's on me. That's what my operations department has to fix. So I'm going to filter down by that water main type to just the distribution and the transmission. And watch how all the other cards pivot to fit that now. All right, now I can see the years those mains were installed. I can see that the top three material types I'm looking at. And over here, my diameter is now shifted. All right, when it comes to leaks on a main, more often than not, I'm going to be looking for something that's between 6 to 8 inches in diameter. So different problems have different sources and different causes. And Insights is going to let me turn the data to whatever angle I need to understand different problems for different issues that come up. And the last thing I'll address here is down near the bottom, we were looking at that idea of corrosive soil. So I had prepared a few charts ahead of time at the bottom of this workbook. So we're looking at metal on the left here and concrete on the right. And all I did was I made this chart of leaks and filtered it down by the materials that applied to. All right, so I'm looking at a chart of 914 leaks on metal pipes that were in corrosive soil. right? And then to the right, when I click that, I see the hotspot distribution of where a lot of those leaks happened, all right? If I click for moderate, I see how the distribution moves around. I did the same thing over here for concrete, all right? So that's where a lot of my concrete leaks are. And the top two categories are in areas that are in those high or moderate areas of corrosive soil for that type of material. All right, so I'm starting to look at all the different factors that come together by filtering down through my data and adjusting how I look at it to adjust how I can understand the data. And I can reuse these analyses. So everything that I've done can be saved. I can save these pages, I can share them. So everything I've done has been shared as a model, and that looks like what we can see over here on the analysis view. So starting over here on the left, we started with some data, and then moving over to the right out into this grid is everything I did to that data to build up the list of factors that I needed to build up to understand why leaks were happening. All right, and as we've seen over this demonstration, we've started to figure out that population and density of infrastructure is a problem. Age of pipes could be a problem. Material, diameter, pressure, corrosive soil. We were able to take our massive amounts of data and bring them to the platform and start to tease out what causes leaks to happen in my system. All right, using all the maps and data and tables that we had access to, we were able to accomplish some understanding from all that big data. So I'm going to just switch back to our presentation to round this out. By combining insights for ArcGIS and Geo Analytics, we looked at where leaks happened. We've started to figure out why leaks are occurring. And we have a little bit of foreshadowing on this slide as far as predicting where leaks will occur. That is in part 3 of this seminar series that we hope you'll join us for, is to understand, how you can take your past and help it predict your future. So to go back over what we did today, I started out as a data scientist, and I used insights for ArcGIS to explore my data a little bit. When I ran out of information that I could use, I went to my GIS team and they created a space-time cube for me. They did some hotspot analysis and they helped get some more understanding. We did some data enrichment today, and that was done within Insights, and it was also done within ArcGIS Pro. All right, in Insights, I went and got some population data. In Pro, I went and got some soil data and augmented what I understood about leaks that were happening and and what kind of soil they were happening in. We brought all of our pipe infrastructure data to our leak data using Geo Analytics Server and joining 2 very large data sets together quickly. And then we shared that data across the platform to, back to the data scientist where they started, so they had more data to look at the problem from more angles and build an understanding as to why leaks happen, so that in the future we can start looking for certain conditions to understand why leaks are happening and where they might happen next. So again, we hope you join us for number 2 and number 3, but it's in number 3 that we're going to talk about that predictive analysis with our platform. So to finish things up, spatial analysis really is critical to water utilities, especially as you are building up your system of record. A lot of you have embraced the ArcGIS platform to collect and manage your asset data. And now what's happening, what we've been doing for the past year and going forward, is working on ways like this to help you understand what you can do to understand your data. So that's all for now. We'll just remind you that there is the website down at the bottom of the slide that you can use to read about and register for the next two webinars in this series. And that's all I've got. So I'd like to open it up for questions now and hopefully answer any questions you have.
Yeah, we've had several coming in, so we'll just get started with those questions. A question that's been asked is concerning other data systems. So can you talk about how Insights connects to applications such as Maximo or big data systems? And is this a direct connection, or do you have to import and export?
No, these actually are direct connections. You do not have to import, export. So like I did here, let me go over to Insights. When I go to add data, any database that I can establish a connection to, and Maximo would be considered, such a system. I'm actually reaching out to a database that I've got a live connection to. So if this was Maximo, I could be pulling tables right out of it to do exploration within Insights. I do not have to, dump something out of a system and then load it up into Insights. I can connect directly.
Thanks, Matt. Clarification, should be a pretty quick question, is when you were showing the leaks, the first time around you were Insights and you were looking at all the leaks, you had highlighted that we went from thousands of leaks to 196 leaks. Were these actual leaks that were being recorded, or were they leak locations?
If I understand the question correctly, they were leak locations. So these aren't leaks that came back from a leak detection listening device. This data came from the White House Utilities District. They lent us their data to work with. And these are the leak work orders that came out of their work order management system. So these are calls that they responded to at those particular locations in space. They're actual leaks. They weren't suspected leaks that they were listening for. I hope I answered that question accordingly.
I think so. Thanks for clarifying. Another question we had a couple times is more focused on licensing and how Insights is set up. So to be a little more specific, do you have to have enterprise, or can you use Insights without enterprise?
You do not have to have enterprise to use Insights for ArcGIS. You can use it with your ArcGIS Online subscription. At this time, the one thing that will drop out is when I go to add data, this ability to connect to external databases is not in the online version of Insights. So that goes back to the first question. In cases like that, you would have to dump things out of other systems to bring it in here. But there's good news about that. We are working on having this capability in the online version of Insights. So that will come to the online version, hopefully in the near future.
Thanks, Matt. Another question that digs into the data, you might like this one, is that you're using Insights and you're looking at all this leak data and it's telling you how many leaks there were, and you just described how these came from work orders. Is there a way to dig deeper into the data to find out the ratio of leaks versus the linear feet of pipe?
Yes, there would be. There would be, actually, as I look at the pipe data, I can show this a little bit in Arcgis Pro. It's not something I showed in today's analysis, but the pipe data does know, oops, I clicked the wrong thing. Let's click on a pipe. If I can get one. There we go. Break count. I don't have it calculated, but if I had a count, then I would be able to look at ratios of, where are the problem pipes, all right? So, by aggregating, give me a count. You know, and I would probably do that this way. I would take the pipes as the target and switch it with the leaks there. All right, that would give the pipes all the count information I would need. And that one-to-many relationship there would let me then figure out what's the ratio to miles of pipe versus the number of leaks that happened on it. Just have to do the analysis a little different.
Very cool. All right, we still have additional questions. We have more time, so we'll just keep moving along. A couple of questions we're asking about the charts and graphs that you are showing in Insights. Our attendees want to know if those are able to be exported maybe to Excel or to Access. Is there a way to export them out to be viewed in other applications?
Unfortunately, not right now. That is something we get asked about a lot. I can export, I can share pages, I can share workbooks, and the data that I create, I can share that data. So for right now, you know, if I take one of my charts that's out on the page there, I could share the data that's on that little card to another system and recreate the chart, maybe in Excel or something like that. But yeah, as far as like take this chart card and I want to export that and put it in something else, we're not there yet, but we have been asked that a lot, so we're working on what we can do about that.
Okay. And then we do have a couple attendees that are saying they don't have leak data and maybe they're not data rich, as you pointed out in your presentation. What path should they take to get to this point?
Okay, so, you know, back where we started mentioning, you know, for many years now, since, you know, going back to maybe 2011 when ArcGIS Online first came about, and then ArcGIS Enterprise followed along after that. You know, the first major component of web GIS, you know, whether you use online or enterprise, is this idea of building up a system of record. So being able to just collect these leak points and, you know, even compare them against your pipe infrastructure first requires you to be collecting information. And a place I can point you to get started is if we go to solutions.arcgis.com, and I would go to the water industry in this case, and I could go right to documentation here. And there's several different solutions that apply to the use of GIS for water, wastewater, and stormwater. All right, and in the case of being able to collect where leaks are happening, we have a ready-to-go solution called the Water Leak Investigator. And you could download this map and data layer and deploy it into your organization, and using Collector for ArcGIS, you could start building that system of record. So you can have your pipes, you know, as part of your platform, all the leak information that you're collecting, and then as time goes on, you know, sooner or later you'll have 1 or 2 or 5 or 15 years of leaks that you can start going back and getting that understanding that we tried to convey today.
Thanks, Matt. We do have a question concerning international customers. Is this available internationally? And I know our team works globally, so we do support our international distributors and customers. But specifically looking at what you've shown today, any comment on international use?
Well, I've this year alone, I've worked with France, I work with Turkey, I've worked with Mexico, Brazil, and they've all been very interested in the use of this. So I know it is available internationally. If you don't know who your distributor is, we will contact us and we'll definitely get you in touch with the people that you need to speak to. And the one other thing I can share about that is if we go back to where we did some enrichment. One more thing that comes to mind is, maybe when you open up the data browser, we have lots of different data variables for the United States. That might drop back a little bit when we go to other countries. There just might be less data that's been curated. But even, going to the Living Atlas to do things like data enrichment, you will find variables that you can work against to use this if you're overseas.
Thanks for pointing that out. That's always something I forget about. Okay, we have a couple more minutes and a lot more questions, so let's move to the next one. Licensing seems to be coming up a couple times, so can you talk about licensing with Geo Analytics Server and how that's installed? And I know it's a different license, as well as if someone's interested at their organization to get access to insights, how do they do that?
Okay, so Geo Analytics Server is a server role for ArcGIS Enterprise. So when ArcGIS Enterprise is installed in your environment, when you set up Portal and ArcGIS Server, all of the different roles are technically there, and they are just unlocked by licensing. So to start using Geo Analytics Server, you would want a machine to dedicate to be your Geo Analytics Server in your enterprise. You don't want to combine that with your regular GIS server or your portal server. You want to distribute those resources out. So if you have the hardware ready to go, you'd want to procure that, and then you'd want to procure a license for that to enable that server role in that new piece of your, what we would call your enterprise site. Insights is an application that you add on to your enterprise. So it's a little bit lighter weight. If I were to go to my portal, so this is the portal that I'm in today. This is where all my data came from. Let me just sign into it really quickly. Hopefully quickly. So this is something that you install the Insights application, and then it is a product that is licensed. So looks like I have 50 licenses of Insights that I can dole out to different members of my organization. And the way they access that is every organization has this apps widget that you can go and then access the apps that you have access to. So Geo Analytics is a server. Go ahead.
Sorry, if someone wanted access to Insights, they would need to coordinate with their portal or ArcGIS Online administrator so that they could get one assigned to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And then that'll show up here as your available apps that you can work against. So Geo Analytics, you need some infrastructure for that. Insights, you need an app, and work with your administration team to be granted access to those things as you need to.
Thanks, Matt. Great job today. I really appreciate it. I think we covered most of the questions. We'll try to get to those that we didn't via email. And then to figure out pricing for this kind of stuff, you'd want to contact your Esri representative. So if you're not sure who that is, feel free to contact me, make a note in the questions dialog box real quick, and we can help you identify who your account rep is. As Matt said, we do have 2 other webinars coming up in this series. If you haven't taken a look at those yet, please use this URL to get there. And for those of you that were asking about a recording, yes, we're recording this webinar. It will be posted. It'll be available probably next week sometime. And my last pitch is, if you're not aware of our Esri Water Conference, Esri does host a water-focused conference every year. In 2019, it will be February 4th through the 6th in Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully we'll see some of you there. Thank you for joining the webinar today and have a great day.